Okay, separating mixtures. Separating mixtures, this will be our topic for today. Sorry for the late upload though. Um, Mixtures can still be separated even after mixing them, especially those that have not undergone chemical change. It is a lot easier kasi unlike yung mga those that have undergone chemical change, medyo mas mahirap yung processes nila compared to those that are just physically mixed rather than having a chemical reaction. So yun yung ibig sabihin natin when we that have undergone chemical change for mixtures, for other mixtures. So okay. Have you tried separating mixture? Kayo, na-try nyo na ba? Naglalaba ba kayo? Do you wash clothes ba? Or hindi? Kasi there are certain rules, no? Not actually rules naman, pero some guidelines for us to follow when we are going to do the laundry is you have to separate your usual clothes from your undergarments. Mga underwear ninyo, hindi natin dapat sinasabay sa mga um, main clothes natin. Okay? And also, others also do separate their working clothes, pati sa mga clothes na ginagamit lang nila sa bahay. Okay? Kasi sabi nila na mas madali raw malabhan yung ginagamit lang sa bahay compared to those yung nasa work, or is it the other way around? Depende na yan. But what's important is when you're going to wash or do the laundry is to separate the colored ones and the white ones. It is very important kasi you don't want to have your white color clothes get stained by the colored clothes. Kasi some colored clothes kasi after washing, their color tends to fall off. It will be mixed with water. And if you have a light colored shirt, which is to be specific nga is puti, white, it might get the color. So, pangit na tignan yung damit ninyo. It's no longer nice, 'di ba? So, are you a picky eater? Ano ba ibig sabihin ng picky eater? So, for example, you don't like gulay. Dito kasi you tend to separate it din sa food nyo. So, basically as doing this, you are separating a mixture sa pagkain ninyo. Let's say you have a mixture of meat and vegetables. You tend to separate the vegetables because you don't want to eat the vegetables. Ang gusto nyo lang kainin is ang meat. Nako, dapat eat din tayo ng vegetables para kompleto lahat. Okay? Picky eater kayo. Or are you just bored like me? This is what I did way back um the early days nung pandemic, no? Look at what I did. I got this ding dong pack. Ding dong is like a mixed nuts. So sineparate ko isa-isa during the process. So this is one example of separating a mixture. No, I did not do this just for this video. I did that matagal na nga. Siguro nasa late March or early April. I cannot trace it na kung kailan exactly. So, yun. That's one example of separating mixtures. Solid and solid particles though. Solid and solid mixtures. Okay. Different ways to separate mixtures. Let us go to specific the processes involved when separating mixtures. So example, magnetism or magnetic separation. Basahin lang natin. Using magnet to separate iron or magnetic materials from non-magnetic materials. So for example lang, you have your mother, yung father nyo, or your auntie ba, or yung uncle nyo, kinuha nyo yung newly bought set of needles. Nako, needles. Please don't play with needles. So you just happen to be curious and got the entire thing. Tapos tumakbo kayo sa labas and accidentally drop yung set, spreading the needles all around. Okay lang pag cement, mas mabilis. Pero what if sa soil? 'Di ba? So, all you have to do is to pick everything up one by one. Sometimes, hindi nyo pa alam kung meron pa bang ibang naiwan. Baka may naiwan pa. So, kawawa yung makakaapak nun. Correct? So, through magnetism or using the magnetic separation, you can make use of a magnet. All you have to do is to look for a magnet. If you don't have one, so malas kayo. You just have to face the consequences that your parents or guardians, your aunts, your uncles will get mad at you. So anyway, using magnet nga to easily pick up the needles, since needles are magnetic, no, dumidikit sila sa magnet. So it will be easier for you to pick them up or even find them. Kasi for example nga, you don't know kung meron pa bang specific needle na naiwan sa ground. So all you have to do is just to use the magnet. Ikoka nyo lang sa area using the magnet lang. Okay. So this is one example of removing a magnetic object from a non-magnetic object. So we have here salt and iron filings. So imimix lang natin yung salt at saka iron filings. If you're gonna ask me, Teacher Mark, is this you? No, this is not me. Kinuha ko na lang po ito sa YouTube. Okay? So after separating, after mixing them, so if I were to ask you, it will be hard for you to remove the iron filings from salt manually, di ba? Iisa-isahin nyo yan, mahirap po yan. It is not easy for us to separate the iron filing from the salt. So through the process of magnetism or magnetic separation, mas mabilis kasi matatanggal natin just to get the idea nga kung paano sina-separate ito. Let's just watch the video. Tagal nyo. Maybe we can, yun. Okay. Pakita lang natin. So using the magnet na nga po, hino-hover niya lang on top. As you can see, obviously, he has a very strong magnet na nakukuha kaagad ang mga iron filings separating, okay, the mixture. So, ganun lang. Next is sedimentation. Okay. Sedimentation, a process that allows particles to settle at the bottom before separating the mixture. Parang one of the topics natin yan before. Diba? Suspension. Parang suspension. Yun yung parang same yung process nila. Okay, sedimentation where for example dito sa left natin, sa left side, if you notice, meron tayong sand particles, sand or mud particle, and then it is mixed with water nga. And if you're going to leave it after some time, yung mga solid particles, which is in this case yung mud or yung sand, will settle at the bottom, leaving us clear water. Okay, but it's not all the time that it will leave you clear water. Okay, sometimes kasi there are particles that are too small that can still be mixed along with water. So depende yan. Yung mga malalaki kasi yan yung mas mabilis na mahulog dyan thanks to gravity. Okay, so next, decantation. Actually, decantation is quite connected to sedimentation. It's just that nga separating the liquid from the settled particles after the sedimentation process. So what do you mean by that? So kanina, after doing the sedimentation process, after the particles have settled down, we are now going to slowly pour the water, the clean water, to another container, leaving the particles or the sediments behind. Okay? So, yan ang purpose natin dyan. So, then again, ma-relate lang nga natin yung in between sedimentation and decantation. Plus, there's also one more. Kasi nga, like what I've told you earlier, yung sa PowerPoint kanina, it's not always na clean water. Okay? It's not always clean water. Kasi paminsan nga, may naiiwan pang dirt mixed with water. And through that process, pwede nating gamitin ang tapos na tayo sa sedimentation. Then this is decantation, separating the water from the mixture, the sediments, which is ito. And now we use the process of filtration. Okay, separating further the leftover particles in a decantated mixture. So, yung kanina yung naiwan, this is now called the decantate. Yung naiwan. Okay? Ito yung sediments. We separated the mixture earlier through decantation. And the water that you have separated is called a decantate. Okay? Take note of that. Tapos ngayon, sa filtration naman, separating further the leftover particles. Kung meron pa man dun sa decantate na naiwan, you're going to use a filter. Kailangan natin ng filter paper, pwedeng cloth. Depende kasi sa size ng particles. Pwedeng strainer lang. Pwedeng filter paper, cloth, tissue. Pwede rin. Okay, so depende yan. What is the purpose of the filter? Para makuha natin yung residue, yung leftover pa, kung ano pa yung soil na naiwan doon sa mixture na naiwan. Okay? Which is nga yung decantate, no? Baka kasi may mga particles pa, solid particles pa na naiwan that we have to filter further. So, yun ang process ng filtration is to remove or to filter further, leaving us with a filtrate that is basically better than the decantate ng naiwan. Okay. Dito, mas less ang solid particles na naiwan sa water. Okay. This process is quite similar when you drain the water from your pancit canton noodles. Sino ba sa inyo nagluluto? Do you cook ba? Kasi syempre, if you cook pancit canton, you don't leave the water behind. You tend to drain the water. Else, it will be a soup already. Hindi na siya pancit canton na dry. Okay? So, parang similar yung ating process. But in this case, it's bigger. Bigger yung subject natin in this case. Okay. So just to show you the relationship between sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. Meron tayong mud, leftover. Ito na yung tubig natin. This is called sedimentation after mixing it. And then, ipopour natin yung tubig which is through the process of decantation. Ito na yung decantate natin. The decantated mixture. And then later on, if i-filter pa natin. So this is now called the filtration method. So leaving certain particles behind here. Okay? So that's the relationship between the three. Okay na? Parang just to show you the filtrate nga, yung naiwan. Okay. Evaporation. A process on separating mixtures through heating or drying. This process is used when we separate solid particles from liquid like sugar or salt solution. So in other words, evaporation, you already know this process. Pinag-uusapan natin to, basic states of matter from liquid to gas. Okay, tinatanggal natin yung liquid sa mixture na to. So during the process of evaporation, we are basically removing the liquid from the mixture. Okay. Depende actually kung basta technically the point here is separating the liquid from the mixture. Okay. So if you notice a sugar or salt solution, kahit na homogeneous pa yan siya, so di ba after mixing, you won't be able to see any particles left behind unless there's too much. Pag too much yung salt na nilagay nyo, that has something to do with solubility na. Kasi depende kasi yan eh. If you add too much salt or sugar, the salt or sugar will no longer dissolve in the mixture unless you're going to increase the temperature of the water. So that's possible na. So ibang topic naman yun. Okay? So for example, in this case, this is salt solution. So, boiling tayo. So, if you observe this area here, nagda-dry na, leaving salt particles. Slowly yan, tignan nyo. Look. Dahan-dahan na nawawala yung tubig. And then, slowly na rin, there. Nagiging visible na yung salt. Okay? Do you see that? Hanggang tuluyan mawawala na talaga yung tubig. Because yun ang purpose nga, to literally separate the liquid from the mixture. Ito na yung minimin ko. Okay? So, if you notice that part, the last part, it's because of extreme heat na. The gas the gas trapped sa bottom tried to escape. So, that happens. Okay na? Another one is distillation, a process on separating mixtures through boiling as well. So, parang similar naman talaga sila pati sa evaporation. But in this case, it is mostly used for liquid mixtures, liquid and liquid mixtures. Although, it is also for solid and liquid, pero in this case kasi dapat yung solid natin are smaller and or somehow microscopic na yung particles niya. Okay? For example, kapag yung mga bacteria or yung mga dumi, we can basically separate that from liquid through distillation. Okay? Ano nga bang distillation? So, again, separating one liquid from another liquid according to their boiling point. So, explain ko lang through an image. So, what happens here, this is our water. So, notice nyo lang. Sana I can do a mark. No? Pwede bang mag-mark dito? Okay, a laser pointer. There. Okay. So, for example, ito. We have source of heat. Kulang na lang dito actually thermometer. Kasi kailangan natin ng thermometer nga. If you are going to separate liquid and liquid mixture. Two liquids. Depending on their boiling point. Okay. So, for example, for now, i-explain ko lang muna yung solid liquid or microscopic particles. So, ang nangyayari ngayon, earlier kasi sa evaporation, you don't care about the liquid there anymore. Kasi ang gusto nyo doon is yung solid particles, which is yung naiiwan doon. 'Di ba? So, after boiling na nga, nagbo-boil na, when water boils, water becomes what? Becomes gas. Yung gas na yun ngayon will transfer or will travel to this tiny pipe. And yung tiny pipe na yan is surrounded by a certain cooler. Depende kasi, sometimes naglalagay sila ng ice or something that is cold. This area should be cold. Why? Because nga, just like clouds, no? The moment na yung evaporation process na, once gas will cool off, pag malamig na, it turns back to liquid. Okay? It turns back to liquid once it reaches a certain temperature that it can no longer hold of being a gas. Okay? So, nagiging liquid na siya. So, ang nangyayari dito ngayon, yung evaporated water vapor, cools down and becomes or turns back to liquid. So, what's the best part here? Okay, explain ko lang muna yung best part dito. The best part here that if you have any germs here, or kahit ano pa yan, a germ that or a virus that will not or that will be able to survive this boiling point or extreme heat kung magso-survive siya. So, ang mangyayari dito ngayon is that whatever is in here, yung mga bacteria na yan, will not evaporate along with water. They don't evaporate. They will stay here. Okay? Separating this liquid. In other words, itong liquid na to is now called a distilled water. Okay, ibig sabihin dyan, the problem with distilled water is wala dyan kahit anong minerals. It's just water alone. Kasi 'di ba meron tayong mga mineral water and such. So pagdating sa distilled water, it means that it is just pure water. You don't have any minerals there and such. Wala kayong nakukuha doon, just water alone. Okay? Ngayon, ano naman yung sinasabi ko kanina, yung dalawang different types of liquids, no? Two types of liquids. So for example, if we are going to mix water and alcohol, water has a different boiling point compared to alcohol. Usually, ang water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Actually, it starts boiling na at some point. Pero, its boiling point talaga that it completely boils talaga is 100 degrees Celsius. While alcohol, most alcohols, they have a boiling point lower than the boiling point of water. So, in other words, compared to a water, alcohol will boil first. So, kung meron tayo ngayong certain mixture dito, which is a liquid mixture of water and alcohol, that's why nga sinabi ko kanina, di ba, kailangan may thermometer tayo dito to know the temperature para ma-adjust natin yung amount of heat. Let's say the thermometer now reads roughly around 60 or to 70 degrees Celsius. So let's say, assuming that we also have that alcohol here content that boils at that temperature. So ang mangyayari ngayon is that what's boiling here, yung nag-evaporate lang in this process, is just the alcohol. Okay? Kasi nga, we set it to 70 degrees Celsius alone. So what's evaporating here is the alcohol at 70 degrees Celsius and being transferred to another container. So, ang nangyayari ngayon, ang nahuhulog lang dito because of the fixed temperature using the thermometer, this is just alcohol. Okay? And yung naiiwan dito is just water. Because water cannot be transferred to this container because water cannot boil or evaporate at that certain temperature. Okay? Especially knowing the fact nga that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius. Okay? Even though it starts boiling at some point, pero yung boiling point niya talaga is 100 degrees Celsius. Okay? Then just to make it clear, again, if we have a mixture of alcohol and water here with a fixed amount of heat reading at 70 degrees Celsius, if we have a thermometer here, yun na nga, let's say 70 degrees Celsius, so yung alcohol lang yun or that specific liquid lang ang mag-evaporate and will travel through here, turning back to liquid and be separated from the mixture. Okay? Yun ang distillation. Okay? So, I hope naintindihan nyo. If you have any questions, we can clarify further on that. Just ask me lang. Okay? Okay, so next is summary of ways to separate mixtures. So, summarize lang natin. One is magnetic separation or magnetism. Other one is sedimentation. Other one is decantation, filtration, evaporation, and distillation. So remember, yung sedimentation natin, decantation, and filtration is they are basically related lang. Parang pwede lang natin sila i-combine. Also, for evaporation and distillation, they have the similar process kasi both need heat source. Okay? Kailangan kailangan ng mainit. We need fire, okay? To be able to do the process. Okay. So I have an assignment. I will not ask for this immediately. Pwede natin to i-submit at least 2 weeks ba? I'll just announce sa group chat natin kung kailan. So take a video of you doing an experiment. Anong experiment na to? So your task will be show the process of sedimentation, decantation, and filtration. So kayo na bahala kung anong klaseng particles ang gamitin ninyo. Soil, mud, sand, kayo na bahala. Okay, mixed with water. Show the process. And ang important dito, I don't want you to just be quiet. in the video, I want you to explain the process in the video for me to make sure na naintindihan ninyo yung topic na to. Okay, gusto ko sana gawin yung evaporation pero natatakot ako kasi baka walang supervision from your parents, walang adult supervision, so baka masunog yung kitchen ninyo dahil sa project natin. And also, distillation, mahirap yun kasi yun nga, we don't have the proper apparatus for that. So anyway, that's it. So if you have any clarification for your assignment, just message doon sa group chat natin.